Hi, lovely audience. My 500 plus subscribers have been completed. I want us to increase this and grow our YouTube family, because the bigger the family will be, the more people will share their daily incidents with me, which will reach you through this platform. So why not subscribe to this channel and help grow it? I hope you won't disappoint me, that I know I can count on you. So let's start today's real story. She didn't even wait until the reading of the will was finished before she leaned forward and said it like she already owned everything. I assume the inheritance will be transferred to me, Vivian Caldwell said, her voice calm, controlled, and completely certain. And in that moment, I realized she had already decided my mother's life and death belonged to her. I didn't respond right away, because part of me was still trying to process the fact that my mother was gone. And another part of me was trying to understand how someone could turn grief into a transaction that fast. My name is Nolan Prescott, and 3 weeks before that meeting, my mother, Eleanor Prescott, had passed away quietly in her home in Greenwich, Connecticut. There had been no drama in her final days, no hospital chaos, no last-minute confessions, just a slow, steady decline that she accepted with a kind of grace I never understood. She had prepared everything: documents, accounts, instructions, even the outfit she wanted to be buried in. But the one thing she didn't prepare me for was Vivian. Vivian Caldwell had married my father, Charles Prescott, 2 years before my mother got sick. And even then, the timing had felt calculated. She was polished, always composed, always one step ahead in every conversation. She never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Control was her language. After my mother's diagnosis, Vivian became helpful. She showed up more often, offered to coordinate appointments, brought food we didn't ask for. At the time, I thought she was trying to bridge something, trying to make peace with a complicated family structure. But looking back now, it felt more like positioning. And that's what made that moment in the lawyer's office so unsettling. Because she wasn't grieving, she was claiming. The attorney, Daniel Whitaker, didn't react immediately. He simply adjusted his glasses and looked at her for a few seconds longer than normal. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said finally, his tone measured, "the will has not yet been fully presented." Vivian smiled faintly. "I'm aware, Mr. Whitaker," she replied. "I'm simply clarifying expectations." Expectations. That word stayed with me, because it wasn't a request. It wasn't even a suggestion. It was a declaration. Before we go further, I want you to think about this. If you were sitting where I was, hearing someone talk about your mother's money like that, would you stay quiet, or would you say something right then? I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, but because I didn't yet understand what my mother had already put into motion. Daniel Whitaker continued reading. Assets, properties, investments. Everything was structured cleanly, precisely. My mother had always been like that. No loose ends, no ambiguity. Then he reached the section that mattered. The sum of $400,000, he read, allocated under the Prescott Estate liquid holdings. Vivian leaned forward again. "Shall be transferred," he continued, pausing just slightly, "into a trust established under the sole beneficiary, Nolan Prescott." The room went still. Vivian blinked once. Just once. And that was the only crack I saw in her composure. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice still calm but sharper now. "That doesn't align with what Charles and I discussed." Daniel didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the document. "This was executed 6 months prior to Mrs. Prescott's passing," he said. Vivian turned slightly toward me. "Not fully. Just enough." "And you were aware of this?" she asked. I shook my head slowly. "No." And that was the truth. Because my mother never told me. Not directly. Vivian leaned back in her chair. And for the first time, she didn't look in control. "This is highly irregular," she said. "As Charles's spouse, I should have legal consideration in the distribution." Daniel finally looked up. "You do," he said, "and you have received it." He slid another document across the table. Vivian glanced at it. Then again. Her expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. Because whatever she was reading, she hadn't expected it. "Your marital entitlements," Daniel continued, "have been fully honored through jointly held assets with Mr. Prescott." Vivian's fingers tightened slightly around the paper. "And this trust?" she asked. Daniel folded his hands. This trust, he said, comes with conditions. Now I felt it. The shift. The moment where something unseen began to surface. Conditions? Vivian repeated. Daniel nodded. The beneficiary does not receive direct control of the funds until the age of 32, he said. Until then, distributions are managed under specific guidelines. I frowned slightly. That part, I hadn't expected. What kind of guidelines? I asked. Daniel looked at me now. Guidelines your mother personally outlined, he said. He opened another folder. And she was very specific. Vivian didn't say anything, but she was listening now, carefully. First, Daniel said, the trust cannot be accessed, influenced, or redirected by any spouse, step-parent, or extended family member. Silence. Second, he continued, any attempt to legally challenge the trust structure results in an immediate suspension of discretionary distributions. Vivian's jaw tightened. Barely. And third, Daniel said, his tone steady, a separate clause authorizes this firm to initiate counter-litigation for undue influence if any party attempts to pressure the beneficiary. That's when it became clear. This wasn't just a will. It was a defense system. My mother hadn't just left me money. She had built something around it. Something protective. Something intentional. Vivian placed the document down slowly. You're suggesting, she said, choosing her words carefully, that I have no legal pathway to access or influence this trust. Daniel didn't hesitate. That is correct. The room felt heavier now. Not tense. Not chaotic. Just settled. Like a conclusion had already been written long before we arrived. Vivian looked at me again. And this time, her expression wasn't confident. It wasn't controlled. It was calculating. Of course, she said finally, her tone softening again. This is all quite overwhelming. She offered a small, polite smile. I'm sure Nolan and I could discuss this privately and come to an understanding. That was the moment I understood her strategy. If she couldn't control the structure, she would try to control me. And honestly, part of me wanted to give in. Not because I trusted her, but because I was tired. Grief makes everything feel negotiable. But then I remembered something my mother once told me. People show you who they are when they think you're not paying attention. And suddenly, I realized she had been paying attention the entire time. She saw this coming. Before it even happened. Before we go further, be honest with yourself. If you were in my position, knowing someone might slowly pressure you over time instead of confronting you directly, would you recognize it early? Or would it take you too long? I took a breath. I don't think there's anything to discuss, I said calmly. Vivian held my gaze for a moment, and then she nodded. Of course, she said, just offering support. Support. The same word she used when my mother got sick. The same tone. The same precision. But now, I could hear what was underneath it. Over the next few weeks, Vivian didn't push. Not directly. She became patient, more present, more attentive. She invited me to dinners. Checked in on me. Asked how I was handling everything. On the surface, it looked like care. But every conversation had a direction, a subtle shift toward financial stress, future planning, shared responsibility. It was never direct, but it was always there. And I understood something important. Pressure doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly, consistently, until you start questioning your own boundaries. But here's the part she didn't expect. I had the trust documents, and I had Daniel Whitaker. Every time she brought something up, I didn't argue. I didn't react. I just referred back to the structure. Calmly, consistently, and slowly she stopped. Not because she changed, but because she realized she couldn't. 3 months later, she moved out of the Greenwich house. No dramatic exit. No confrontation. Just distance. And that was the final confirmation. Because people don't walk away from something they value unless they realize it was never truly available to them in the first place. My mother didn't just protect an inheritance. She protected clarity. She removed ambiguity. And in doing that, she removed control from anyone who might try to take it. I never thank her for that, because I didn't know I needed to. But now, I understand.